Hey everybody, Sean Lardo here, ConnectWise Economy Evangelist, back again for another episode. Well, in this case, we're talking about securing your data, which is definitely a very interesting conversation that takes place everywhere I go. We've seen so many different groups and conferences and technologies emerge as a result of the cybersecurity boom that's taken place over the last, well, it's been happening for a long time, but the boom's taken over the last few years, of course. So had a chance to really dig into this with a lot of really good people on our side. And as you know, we do have a cybersecurity offering and a partner program, and a lot of our partners are taking advantage of it. So today we're going to talk about accelerating growth. This is part of the accelerating growth series for the securing your data piece. But I'm not going to talk too much because it's a holiday week and people probably don't want to even hear from us that much. So without further ado, we're going to bring up our speakers today. Today we have on with us Keith J. Nelson, PhD, and CEO, CISO at Vistum Solution. He will tell you he's not in sales, yet he sells all the time. And Natalie Suarez, the Principal Solutions Advisor at ConnectWise. So if we can bring those people up now. Hi, guys.
Hello.
How you doing, Sean? It seems like a tradition that during every holiday season you have me on a webinar, kind of a father-son thing. And I'm looking forward to seeing you and the girls at Thanksgiving. Just wanted to open up for that.
I really appreciate that, Keith. Thank you so much for just making up everything you just said. So let's talk. I talk to Natalie. How you doing, Natalie? More importantly,
great. How are you guys?
Doing well. Oh, goodness gracious! All right, so this is a great conversation we're going to have here, and I go to a lot of conferences. We talk to a lot of people, and security's always been, especially now, it's still like the Wild West. There's still the question of what is an MSSP. There's still a question of should you have in-house, out of house services, all those different things, right? That's all the questions we'll get into. But we brought Keith on. He's our local resident now, like expert, right? I mean, that's scary, but it is what it is. And so without further ado, let's get into the next slide here and let's talk about this. Keith, I know you say this often. You've been a lot of my live streams that I'm on, you always comment on, you talk about being the expert and I also know that we talked at one point where, we were talking about a pricing conversation. I know you love the pricing conversation. And you said that your exact line to me was, you tell them how much it's going to cost to do what you're supposed to do, and you tell them what you're supposed to do. And if they start to lessen the cost, you start removing services and tell them how it's going to affect them. Is that accurate?
It's pretty close to accurate. We looking at enhancing their business process and not selling security as a commodity. We look at using it as we gain control of their documentation and their data. We're actually helping improve and streamline their workflows. So we look at trying to align with business outcomes and business goals, as well as talking about what's mandatory, what's needed, and what's good practice.
Right. Okay. So, with that though, the struggle we see with MSPs is I don't want to say it comes from the break fix mentality, but I feel like it does to a degree where they're coming to plug a hole as opposed to talking about future, how things look. So how do you even overcome that objective?
We actually don't talk at a price per, and you and I have discussed this a lot. Once you do that, you've commoditized your offering. And then all of a sudden you're saying, just look at this checklist and find a better price, and you may find a better deal. We try and talk about how these components will actually integrate and enhance their workflows and make them more productive. So we price on a value basis. We look at a project, take an example, the Port of LA and Long Beach. We go in there and say, we're saving dispatch time. We don't talk about this many workstations and this many servers. We connect everything to a real business outcome.
Absolutely. And now this is the reason why you're here, Natalie, as the ConnectWise expert of not me, but you. You work with our partner program for the cybersecurity piece.
Correct.
How do we help the partners? Because that's the question I get all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting what Keith just said. So when we're trying to help partners, we are trying to teach them exactly that, that cybersecurity is really all about managing risk. And we understand that it only is going to make sense to cover that risk when it is a benefit to that small business. So what Keith is saying really resonates with where we're trying to go with a partner program, is to show them how they can make it a benefit and simplify their workflows and even actually save them money in the long run. And we do that. I was just, where was I last week? I think I was in Kansas, talking to one of our partners and talking to some of their CMMC clients. And that's what we were talking about, how it can actually save them money in the long run when they're deploying, when they're managing their risk correctly and deploying the right people, process, and tech.
Gotcha. And so, and you, I'm sure you still get the same response that we hear all the time, which is you can't charge that much. You can't do these things, you know, and so is there, do you work with them to help them overcome that with their clients too?
Well, yeah, you have to look at the trade-off between, it sounds trite, but we always say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because we always have to get it right every single time. And the bad guy or the threat actor only has to get it right one time. So it's a trade-off. You just have to decide, what your risk tolerance is and, to mitigate those risks. Otherwise, when that bad thing happens, it's going to cost a lot more.
I would say if I was in sales, if I did any sales, I would bring up number one is you want to move yourself from being a cost center to a business asset.
Exactly.
Once, historically, if you've been an MSP or whatever we call ourselves long enough, you've probably sold them Norton or McAfee or something you're saying you need to replace. So number one, they look at the fact that you're always selling me something instead of enhancing my business. The second thing they look at is really not the cost. That's small thinking. They look at how much you may disrupt their workflows and negatively affect their business. So as you're presenting these things, you have to show you have a knowledge of how their business runs and how their workflows run and how we can seamlessly integrate this while enhancing certain workflows.
Right. Because it's all about business. This is cybersecurity is a business decision, a risk mitigation tactic, not an IT discussion, right?
So how do you, well, that's the question, is how do you pivot that though, right? A lot of MSPs are tech people and
Right.
they understand the nuts and bolts in the back end. And it's about, I think you're absolutely right. You say it's a business conversation,
Right. It's all about educating them about the fact, the way we like to say it is that it's not all tech. It's people, processes, and tech. And the simplest way to explain that is it's a three-legged stool. If one of those legs is shorter or missing altogether, that stool falls over. So it's not just all about the tech. It's about a well-rounded system that takes into account people, process, and tech. And some of those things, some of those people processes, especially like security awareness training, those are so cost effective and have the biggest return for, protecting your environment. Because I think the Verizon data breach investigations report that was recently released said 74% of incidents are caused by some type of human factor. So you just have to, consider that. So just by covering that people, that low cost option, you're really, really protecting their environment and reducing their risk surface.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the first component of cybersecurity, or identification of assets, which includes data stores.
Yes.
If you understand lean, which is very common in manufacturing and business, once you're helping, when you identify those things, you're helping streamline workflows. You'll be surprised how many companies just share data in different locations. And it's not effective. That's not good for workflows. It's like, oh, Sean, you need this document. I'll put it in Dropbox. But then I'm working with Natalie and she's using OneDrive. And you're all over the map. And so the first thing is that discovery, and you're promising to help consolidate those assets and to make them work more efficiently and effectively towards the business outcome goals of that company.
Right. And by consolidating, you're reducing your risk surface.
So, okay, but we can get into that because there's a lot to that. I mean, as a matter of fact, the fact is, and Keith and Jay Ryerson, Keith and myself, we did a fireside chat 2 years ago at Secure on what's more important, the technologies or the people, and that, it came down, and it's both. We know that in the right way, and that can take us down the path of operational maturity and everything else. And we don't have 3 days to do this call, to do live stream, or 3 months even. So if you want to click on the next slide here, we'll get moving along here and dig into these things. All right, so this falls right along the lines of what we were just talking about, right? With 43% of cyber attacks targeting small businesses. I mean, again, they're the easiest to go after just due to lack of maturity in their people, process, and technologies they use, which comes full circle, Keith, to your point. You're telling them what to do.
Right, and you're helping guide them. I mean, I'd like to say that you have to respect your clients. They know something we don't know, and we know something they don't know. So we have to avoid talking down to them. I can't unload a container ship, but I could sure help them with that workflow. And
Right.
So this is an education process that if you present it correctly, I understand their perspective. I'm just small. Why would someone want to attack me? And they don't understand, well, because you're on Office 365, you're on a big repository. You probably have a shared internet connection, even though you think it's private, something like your local cable company or shared connection with AT&T or one of the big companies. And they don't really understand their attack surface. And so why are they attacked so much? It's because they're the easiest targets. You go back to, why do I rob banks? Because that's where the money is. But I would choose the banks with the least amount of guards.
Right.
And that's how I relate it, again, if I was selling.
That I think I love that analogy too, because it puts it in, again, as a tech person trying to relate to your audience. If you talk about bank robbery, that's pretty universal conversation. That's pretty simple. So I do, and everybody take note of that. Keith doesn't do
What are you doing in your spare time, Sean?
I like Westerns. I like, Bonnie and Clyde. Who didn't know those things? Billy the Kid. That's how he survived. He did small robberies, and he got for the big one. So just saying. Anyway, now that we've tried to call me out on some like illegal stuff, I hack for a living. All right, so let's move on to the next slide because we got a lot to talk about here.
Yes, we do.
I know, right? So, and this comes back to everything we've already been discussing between best in breed and integrations. A big focal point. Again, we talk about process, people, and technologies, and as we know, ConnectWise has a huge ecosystem. And we also know that you can't just use. It's not necessarily using one product. It's not one product to rule them all. Ultimately, right? There's different layers of cybersecurity. I mean, I don't know. I think it's like 27,000 and counting layers of cybersecurity at this point. I swear it was like one before. Now it's like, I don't even know what it is. But, and I want to start with you, Natalie. As far as that's concerned, I think integrations is a good talk point for us. When you talk to customers, when you talk to our partners and the customers, and we talk about our total ecosystem, how do you approach that? Because, again, there could become a lot of a mess there.
Well, we want to start small. Like, I want to piggyback on something Keith just said. He was saying about we can't talk down to them. I like to use analogies. I like to talk about how we use the NIST framework. I talk about that in terms of a home analogy. Like Keith was saying, you have to identify first. So we have a product that can help, our ConnectWise Identify assessment can help assess where they're at. This is going to identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. It's going to cover all 5 of those. And I normally talk to them about that. And, like you said, they come after small businesses because the analogy I like to use is everyone lives in a house, right? What do you have in your house you want to protect? So we categorize, right? And then after that, we have to figure out how do we protect that? We protect that with alarms. We protect that with those silly yard signs. How do we detect? And we can map all this. I think we're going to see in the next couple of slides how we map all of this to the different products. So we start with an assessment, figure out where they're at, create a roadmap, and then we have different products that integrate well together. And we try to tell them as far as best of breed, just because when you're talking to your clients, you shouldn't be talking product names. You should be talking about, what the product does for them in simple terms and how they work together and how they're going to help them cover that identify protect, detect, respond, and recover, because those are simple terms they can understand. It's just like with the bank robbery. If there's a threat actor casing my neighborhood and I lock my door and my neighbor doesn't, they're going to go into my neighbor's house, right? Not into mine. So we have the tools that'll help them cover all of those bases, backed by a highly skilled security operations center of security engineers and analysts, and our cyber research unit, which even goes out and discovers new threats or researches threat actors and their tactics and techniques and procedures, and puts all that back into the tools so that we can offer our partners an ecosystem that will cover all their bases. Like I said, as much as we can. If anyone ever tells you you're 100% covered, unless you have that whole, 27,000 layer defense in depth, you're never going to be 100%, but we're going to get you as close as we can with best in breed.
Gotcha.
All right, and we all just returned from a trade show where there's a lot of talk about. I hear other providers talking about cost per agent, and you're going, that's small. That's not your cost. If you really look at your financials and look at your data, your cost is fully burdened labor. So being able to get as much consolidated into a free-flowing integrated platform really saves you on your greatest cost, which is labor. And it also allows for effective delivery of data, because when you start doing these approaches with your customer, you're continually upgrading them on where we are in making them as secure as possible. And you have to start with your assessment and prioritize your plan. If it's a lot of different products, it's hard to consolidate that into something that the customer has time to review and act on. So that's one of the reasons we've moved to the ConnectWise family of products, is that they're all connecting, and from what I heard at IT Nation, connecting more, which is what I'm really waiting. Every day I log in to say, are those there yet? Because they all sounded pretty cool. But as you bring that in, you're saying we could spend more time counseling, educating, and improving customers' processes, and less time moving data and paperwork on the back end.
Right. And well, like you said, integrating more. We put the link across the bottom. This is the link to our integration partners too. I think it's important. One of the biggest factors is, again, you came to the family of products of ConnectWise, but also you came into a full ecosystem of all vendors that are involved. We already established, we know it takes more than one product, it takes a dozen products, but you have to make sure that integrations make sense as well, right? They have to be secure. And part of our invent program is exactly that, where they go through the certification piece. Make sure it's secure, make sure the APIs and the integrations make sense. Because the thing I think I hate the most in this industry is when somebody asks, do you integrate into that? And I say, to do what? And they're like, well, the other guys do. And I'm like, well, what's it do though? Like, okay, great. It's like, but what's it do? Tell me what you're trying to accomplish, because sometimes it isn't required to have an integration in some cases. Maybe it already exists. I think that's also a big challenge, is talking about what does exist and what the workaround looks like, as opposed to just more integrations. So, but we do focus on this highly. So I'm glad you brought up the whole integration piece in the family of products, because this is all part of our family of products as well. We can move on to the next topic.
And a single source for support. Something's going to go wrong all the time. That's why we make the big bucks. But our ability to have a single source and to resolve problems is what works. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about this family of products, right? So everybody's looking at this right now. Keith, you're the one that actually discussed all this. We put this in your hands and say, what do you use and how do you go about doing it? So let's talk. There's a lot on this slide. So we're going to summarize and break down as best we can.
So I would say first, because this slide can be overwhelming.
Really?
You look at it and you say, wow, I would say, my pro tip is use every bit of ConnectWise implementation hours you get, and really use your partner program and find out how everything kind of connects. Because always on the surface, and this isn't enough, sometimes you look at this and say, I don't see the connection to it all. And use your resources to do that. When you look and you add labor costs, which would be like your SOC, co-managed SIM, help desk, NOC, where I can cheaply defer labor over to you, That's huge. That's really huge. And when you start dealing with your SOC, you're saying these are people that spend all day looking at security. If I could either spend all day reading security alerts or I can go make money. I have a choice, and my choice is to try and make money.
But you made a choice. I think that's the trade-off right there. I think that's the difficult thing for some people, right? And again, because you leverage ConnectWise a lot, everything from the actual physical technologies along with the NOC, SOC, and everything else, right? What made you make that decision on that?
About a year ago, and we moved from a different competitor, as you know, Sean, and it takes a while to implement and set it up correctly. And we brought in a consultant that is helping us implement a lot of the managed piece. And I think that's all worthwhile investment for us because we're doing better reporting. We're really following. We start with the risk assessment and vulnerability management and the identity assessment pieces, and continue to revisit those with clients because those are simplified as we go and see we're making progress. The SIM reports are very thorough, but most people look at that and go, I don't know what you just did. It sounds like you got a lot of texty things came over and someone did something techy. But when we start with the risk assessment and keep updating that, and you could actually show each client his investment is paying off. And that's important, especially as they're moving down the areas of compliance or cyber insurance and paying those premiums.
Awesome. Okay. Well, cyber insurance, that's a whole, yeah. Anyway, I know. Natalie, so, okay, there's a lot on the screen.
Yeah.
So now partners are like, oh my God, no way. Right. I mean, I did when I saw the slide originally. So how do you make it easy for me to digest and break down and apply this in conversation?
Well, like I said, you want to start with the assessments, just like Keith was saying, the assessment, the vulnerabilities, the risk, and that allows you to create a roadmap because also cybersecurity isn't one size fits all. One customer they may not even be ready for this. One of the clients, maybe they have a bad password policy. Maybe they're still using 8-character passwords, So does it really make sense to enable SSO if all my passwords are password 1? No. So we start with a risk assessment, we create a roadmap, and that guides us, right? So, if you're going to start somewhere, actually, this slide is actually really good because it kind of is in priority order, in my opinion, because you'd want to start with MFA and SSO, but you got to make sure that the clients have a good baseline because those do no good if they're not doing some other, really almost expected security things like security awareness training or expected good password hygiene. And then you'd move on to protecting basically their desktops. Lots of clients that I talk to have remote workers. So when you have endpoint detection and response, that is going to not only protect anyone who's on-prem, it's going to protect anyone who's off-prem. And I wish we had a slide in here where this was all related to the whole NIST. We should have really done that. That really makes it easier. We do actually have one of those somewhere that shows identify. So the first column right there is identify, right? And then the next column would be identify, then protect. So the endpoint, the EDR, that's going to protect you. The next, and it's going to do some of the protection, the SaaS security as well, the secure internet access, the zero trust. And then when you move into SIM, you're going into detect. And of course, there's some detect with the EDR, MDR as well. They're also going to help you if something does happen with respond. I just like to carry it all back to the risk and identify assessments, which are NIST. It makes it easier to understand. And then recover. Incident response. What's your incident response plan? What's your business continuity and disaster recovery plan? And how much of this, like he said, are you relying on ConnectWise to do for you? Because it can be, it's quite a daunting task many of our partners are small businesses. They don't have the resources to have a NOC or a SOC. So they are going to rely on us to provide those services.
So,
and by the way, when you look at implementing, sorry to interrupt you, when you look at implementing MFA or SSO, that is a great starting point to show your customer how well you understand their workflows. Because you could take something that is, everyone says, I don't want 2FA, that's more work. But once you properly implement SSO and create the landing page that Evo allows you to do, you've actually made it easier for them to shift between their business applications all day long. And you can use that to consolidate the different sites they're going to that we don't need to anymore, which comes under your SaaS security and SaaS discovery, which is part of your Avic partnership and so on. You're helping to consolidate it, but spoon feeding it to them so it doesn't interrupt their business. You said, I've made a nice menu.
Great. That sounds great, but also sounds like a lot of work people don't know how to do also. And, because again, we're talking about automating single sign-on through everything, which there's how many different platforms are being used, how many different technologies. And so how do you do that?
If you don't know, I could tell you this, we moved from a competitor over to Evo, and the first thing I don't know how to use this. So I use back to my implementation hours that came with it. And I actually sat with the guy and said, okay, show me how to do what you're telling me. Don't give me a link. Let's do one together. And that's how I would advise people to do it, is just say, use the experts that are in the background and say, well, help me set up this SSO for this client. Let's do this together. And they will. They have.
And that's I'm asking that specifically because the resources, people have to leverage the resources. And I know that, I spent a good many years in sales. So obviously I was probably the biggest culprit and victim of all the dumb stuff we're talking about right now that happened. I mean, legitimately, but that was also because nobody ever provided a process or an automated piece in a way that I'm busy doing my job. My job should not be full-fledged security, right? It should be follow whatever practice and process you give me. That should be streamlined and simple to do. As long as I do those things, then we're good, right?
Well, you bring up another one of my pro tips. When sales or production or manufacturing goes to management and says, Vistum has helped us do our job better, they're more likely to cut me the big check every month.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree. So you've enabled this company to maintain business continuity and establish growth because you've taken them out of the day-to-day rigmarole.
Yes.
I mean, that's what it is. I talk about this to a lot of people. Like, remember even like 5-10 years ago, if you started a new job or you hired somebody to come in a job, you would have their laptop sitting there and a bunch of sticky pads with stuff written all over it for all these different sites they had to go to, right? And here's your password, like right there on their desk, which was a bad idea, of course. But how many times have you seen that happen, right? Like, and then you have to favorite 20 different sites to do your job. Everything from the CRM you use to whatever kind of database you're going to if you're in sales, it's like things like ranking and things like that you would go into. And then also your social media stuff. If you did, like I worked heavily through LinkedIn, again, so you'd be on all these different sites. You'd favorite all these ones that you know already and the ones that you just learned from the company. But there was never any kind of policy around how to protect any of it.
Yeah, now we're giving them a menu on their single sign-on.
That's what you need. And that's what you want. Right. Good. Done. So onboarding. So not only are you helping them with continuity, but you're onboarding also. They should have an easier time onboarding their new hires. Hopefully. Yes.
Right. The most important part, in my view, of selling, if I sold, automation, is making it consistent
on your business
card. Once your automation becomes a hurdle, you start circumventing it. And how many times have you done that at your own company, right? If it's too hard to enter a ticket, you wrote down notes, and at the end of the day, you put in all your tickets and missed half of them. So you have to make the technology easily fit into the workflow and enhance it, not be an obstacle. Otherwise, they'll just figure out how to not use it.
So again, people are going to say, I don't have enough staff. That's going to be the question, right? That's going to be the concern. I don't have enough staff here, Keith, to do this. I don't know how you can possibly do all of this. We've heard it before. So how do they do it? I'll talk to Natalie because she's better than you anyway.
I hope
I'm talking to Natalie now, Keith. Shh.
Oh, I thought you asked me. You said Keith.
I thought you were asking Keith.
I was originally going to Keith, and I was like, but I'll go to Natalie for the expert opinion.
Okay.
Well, I think Keith and Vista, they're like the poster child for practicing what you preach. That's what we're telling people. You have to make it simpler, because if you don't make it simpler for people to use security, they're going to find ways around it.
Yep.
And I mean, they're doing exactly what they should, using their implementation hours. And we have additional resources here as well. We have the ConnectWise University. We have Certify Education. We have, we do ad hoc training, where we'll have like seminars where we'll invite people to our Tampa office or even the UK office, and we'll talk to our MSP partners about better ways to automate. We're not even talking about all the other tools besides the cybersecurity tools that roll into all of this to make all of this possible right now.
Right.
But there's all kinds of resources we have in education to help our partners be successful and do this. But Keith is doing it.
So that's that. I'll come back to you, Keith, right now, real quick about this. Oh, he's gone.
Oh.
Look, Keith left.
He's gone, and he's gone.
Yep. So I won't go back to Keith.
No.
We'll just move on and have a more practical conversation now.
Yay,
okay.
technology.
Don't worry. I was doing this one time, and my laptop rebooted, and I was supposed to
Nice.
literally. So it happens. You know what? Let's go on to the next slide. We'll just start talking without Keith. That's so funny. Amazing.
So I don't think a lot of people know about what's on this slide right here. So,
Right.
So ConnectWise originally helped start what was called the Technology Service Provider, or the TSP ISAL. And in case you don't know what an ISAL is, it is an information sharing and analysis organization. And then these organizations are typically not-for-profit. And so we turned this over to our friends at CompTIA because they are already a not-for-profit. And many of you may be aware of their training services like Security Plus and Network Plus and all of that great stuff. Well, we still do partner with the CompTIA ISAL. And as part of that partnership, there's some certain things we do. One of those is we prepaid for memberships for our partners. And why would a partner want this membership? Well, let me tell you why. Because the CompTIA ISAL has threat intelligence that is very specific and very relevant to managed service providers and managed security service providers and technology service providers and all those service providers that helps you, protect your environment. So they have many ways you can digest it. They have automated threat feeds that can feed into the ConnectWise SIM. They have cyber forums. They have events throughout the year. And they're very serious about security. And if anyone's ever seen me, my intro slide typically says I'm passionate about threat intelligence, therefore the ISAL, Lego, and my family, and not necessarily in that order, depending on the day. And and they provide some really great cyber resources for companies. And these memberships are actually corporate memberships. So once a partner joins using this link, and I realize I should probably give this link to, I should probably give this link to post, shouldn't I?
Yeah, you should. Yes.
I should. Let me do that. Let's see if Natalie can walk, talk, and chew gum at the same time. Probably not.
Oh, you're doing quite well. And
but these are corporate memberships. And what that means is once you take this and join, you are going to be able to have everybody in your corporation get a membership, and that's going to give them discounts to these certifications like Security Plus and Network Plus, access to the cyber forums, access to threat intelligence, and you can actually correspond with actual real life threat intelligence analysts, both from the CompTIA ISAL, some of their other ISAL and ISAC partners, including the information technology or the IT ISAC, and some of the professionals from ConnectWise in our CRU and in our SOC. And while I get that, you can hand it back off over to Keith, and I'll get that link.
Yeah, look, you almost did all at the same time. I'm so proud of you, Natalie. You were
I know, right?
You were there. So Keith, welcome back. Thanks for rejoining us. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Very common at your age. Anyway, so we're talking about CompTIA.
It's not very good in the restaurant. That's all.
So let's. So you're an active part of this all. So tell us your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, this is probably something people don't use enough, underutilized. The ISO just alone is worth the membership, just to get those alerts. And kudos to ConnectWise for starting it and not taking enough credit. I didn't even know it. I've been using it for years and found out ConnectWise is the one that funded it and started it. But also there's other benefits like a whole cybersecurity community. If you're wanting to learn, there's certifications or that you can get. And then I think on the next slide, you're mentioning the emergency response. Now, this is not just this is coaching. So what happens in case of an incident? You still have to do the forensics and the recovery. And ConnectWise has a great product for that, which you can either put on retainer or use hourly. This is where you talk to individuals who have been through some type of incident that help you remain calm and learn how to process what's going on. We have a couple people started it that were actually involved in breaches by one of your competitors that downed their system. We have Matt Lee and Jason Slagle. I bring a little bit of expertise as far as managing through a crisis, having managed through a terrorist attack and other events that Sean knows about, where it's important. And this is hosted. We're proud to say Vistum is hosting this in our dispatch center. 7x24, you call and you'll be matched with a member who can help work through the process and maybe salvage your reputation and your client's reputation. A lot that can happen in that first 24 hours that will determine how this incident affects the principles in the long run.
I mean, I think we saw at the end of Cybersecurity Month indictments. So, I mean,
scary.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Not only indictments,
well, that's not only. I mean, it's kind of. I mean, I'm good
because that's not. But how you'll survive. We're proud to say that after a terrorist attack with 600 employees, we only had one resign, and we had no lawsuits. But it's managing that crisis and managing what's going on, which has. I'd like to tell people in that incident, the most boring thing is that we were cutting checks within 24 hours. The technology is not all of it, and I think that we sometimes forget that as technologies. We think, oh, we can save everything with a new button, a new toy, and you're going. There's a real personal part to this.
Okay, but doesn't that kind of come back to if you use the technologies right to support you the way they're supposed to, that gives you time to do your other stuff you should be focusing on? Because how many times do you see people that get caught?
Well, yeah, before you segued away from me and cut me off on the internet, what I was going to say is when you were talking about allocation of time, and I don't know if you meant that for us or our customers, but for us as providers, I like to take the remedial things, and I hope this doesn't insult people on your help desk, and give them to your help desk and give them to your NOC, and really focus my staff on things that are more profitable and have better focus to our clients. Fixing a printer, no one, it's like you have a big office and you fix someone's printer connection. One person knows you did it. And so I'm going let that low cost help desk do it. Let the NOC patch at night. Let's focus on things.
That's not remedial. The fact of the matter, it's only remedial based off of your skill set and where you are in your career. When you're a 20-year-old kid coming out into this, that is exactly where they need to be anyway, and they're happy to do because you learn in the trenches, and those are the trenches. And the problem is if you get stuck in the trenches, then you're stuck in a day-to-day that you can't make sure you focus on the other stuff, which is your leadership and your what leadership is supposed to be, which is taking care of your team.
And also, letting our live people who have greater customer touch points because it's real versus over chat or over email, over tickets. Really continue to learn about what that business is doing, what directions that business is going, and really how to harvest new projects or expand our services to our clients, and develop those relationships so as people migrate around and move to different companies, they carry us along with them. So I'd rather spend that time. That's just my personal opinion than fixing a printer or applying an update.
No, I think fixing a printer is if you are desperate, don't have employees, you're struggling for that moment, or can't afford employees, or if you're so established that you have a CEO and you can just go do the remedial tasks because it's a no-brainer at that point. You've done it so many times. I mean, I think we all like that to a degree, but but you can't run a business from fixing the printer.
No.
Just saying.
And I think that was one of the reasons when you asked earlier why we kind of bought into the whole product stack, is because we start getting people within your organization, which, you're saying, it's really, if I were to equivocate my labor rate, it's probably well below minimum wage.
So
no, because I'm buying into a shared resource, right?
Yep. Yeah. So your margin is fantastic. So you're profiting there, but you're also not getting stuck in the rigmarole again. And that's exactly why I was asking the question, because when you're an MSP, the top conversations are always how much do you price and how do you package? That's one. And the other one is always, in-house or outsourcing. How do you determine what that is? And I think that people don't know when they should outsource. I know they don't. I watch a lot of people wait till it gets too late and they've tried to work on everything. And then their idea of their business deflates into they are the maintenance man, essentially, because they didn't outsource when they should, because they don't know how to hire either. Most of them don't know how to hire accordingly. Let's be honest. So we take away that aspect as well by we are the ones that are actually reviewing and determining who should be working that job, not you guys.
And I think that the other fear of outsourcing is the loss of control. And you overcome that by establishing relationships with your vendors, and listening to people. Well, we're dealing with Sierra Pacific right now, and they're experts in what they do. And when they call us up and say, how do you want to do this? I said, the way you know best to do it, because they're the experts. So when I talk to the onboarding team at, let's say, the ConnectWise help desk, I just said, tell me what will make this relationship work the best based on your experience. And if you follow those guidelines, then you have a step up in making it work. I think what happens is sometimes when we outsource, we let our own ego get in the way and say, why isn't this big company doing it my way? And I said, let the experts do what the experts do best, and do it the way that they have integrated into a system, and implement it the way they tell you, and then keep your relationships going, because something's always going to go wrong. I mean, that's, like I said before, that's how we make the big bucks. But know who to talk to, and keep your relationships going. And I think it works out very well.
Agreed. Anything else you want to add to this, Natalie?
No, that's great. I mean, we have customer success, partner success, the help desk. There's even ways to reach out to the security operations center when something does happen. So we really believe in that whole relationship aspect here at ConnectWise as well.
And I think this slide is perfect for the segue into this, right? And this is about the partner program, which I talk about this at every conference I'm at. And I think it addresses, the three areas it addresses are very important, from strategy creation to lead generation to sales coaching. So when you're working with them, and back to even what Keith was saying about when to outsource, how to outsource, whatever, do you have those conversations with them on working with us in that capacity, our partners?
Of course. Okay. Of course. You're asking me, right? Yes. Okay. Just checking.
I just want to make sure I said that to you, Natalie, because I was like, I know Keith will start talking. So,
oh, thank you. Yeah. So that's the whole purpose of the partner program, is to help our partners wherever it is that they're at in their business. And we have marketing experts who help them with strategy creation. We have a whole portal that has all kinds of marketing materials they can use to market their services to their clients, whole campaigns. They could do social media campaigns, email campaigns, track all their leads and opportunities. We offer sales coaching through many different ways, through some of those seminars I mentioned earlier, but we also have a program called Certify. And our certified training begins with the ConnectWise University, which has a fundamentals training for everyone. And then it breaks down into more specialized training. So once a month, you can take vCISO training, security operations training, or sales training. And those are led right now by some of our security experts, as well as our solution advisors, which I'm one of those solution advisors. My colleague Jim Peterson and I take turns teaching the sales coaching to our partners.
Nice.
Yeah.
Keith, you been in those classes?
Yes, and by the way, I also rummage through your campaigns at times and make sure that we continue to send that to our existing customers, because it keeps us enforcing us as an expert in our field.
Yeah.
And it saves me the time from having to write it myself, because I don't know how to do sales. But they're really good to send out all the time, and a lot of it is just especially around billing time, because I think people forget what they pay us for.
Exactly.
When you sit there and implement everything and everything works and no one's complaining, and you're going like, what's going on behind the curtain? And sometimes, you have to look at the wizard.
Yep. So Sean, I have a question for you. Can you guess what the best part of the ConnectWise Partner Program is?
Spending time with you?
Yes, it's exactly right. Because what I do in my role is I come and I educate your clients. So if you are part of the partner program, we will send a subject matter expert to your location or do a webinar where you can educate your clients, provide that service to them.
I think it's important to know that you're talking about a sell-through and a co-sell, which is extremely important for people to understand that. And I do want to come back full circle though, real quick, on what Keith said. We know that MSPs struggle with maintaining value throughout the entirety of the relationship with clients. Like, this is why you still pay us. This is why you're still paying us, right? And so when you talk about this in a cybersecurity element, I'm trying to keep it there only. How do you have that conversation? And I'm assuming, Natalie, you have to help them with that conversation too, right? Because do you work with them past the original sale? Do you still work with partners and clients, Natalie, after they sell it originally?
Oh yeah. So we'll help them provide like those seminars. Those are value added to their clients. So we can come in, fix security awareness training. It's like complimentary security awareness training, or talk to them about what's going on in their local area as far as cyber, like things like governance and risk and compliance. We could talk about what specific industries are being hit, what new technologies are coming out. I think Keith mentioned way earlier that, sometimes the clients are like, well, why are you selling me this new thing? Before antivirus was good enough. Now, why do I need an EDR? Well, because the threat actors have evolved their techniques and we have to evolve ours as well. And
I don't think any client says EDR to you.
I'm sorry?
Clients don't say EDR, right?
No, they don't. They just want to know that they're protecting their workstations. You're right. Endpoint detection and response. You caught me. Sorry.
Don't worry. I'm here for English translation.
Thank you. Thank you. You caught me.
I'm like, no, they don't say that. They don't ask what the EDR is. And if they do, but they do sometimes, because the MSP divulges that for absolutely no reason. So I guess the moral of that story is, don't be the one constantly saying all the words.
Yeah, the acronyms.
Exactly.
Well, the worst culprits are bills, right? We integrate off the titles that are in the product catalog, and after about 8 months, someone in accounting goes, "What's this SIM thing we pay for every month?" And so that's why I do pull from your campaigns, because they have a real good definition on what a SIM is and why, and so. It does come up because, if everything works, they don't say it work.
Right.
And I've had customers ask me, I think we've already paid for RMM.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I love that. All right, so we have a couple more slides to go through, right?
I don't think so. But, the other way, yeah, this is it. I think the other way we help is, if you look at the reporting we bring out that our partners can use in their MBRs, their monthly business reviews and their quarterly business reviews and your annual business review, all the business reviews, we have reports that could show, yeah, you're not seeing anything pop up, but look at all the, the attacks that we caught. We caught someone scanning your ports. We caught someone trying to launch malware, but the tools we put on your workstation stopped that and allowed you to roll back your workstation to a known good state with no business interruption. We could show those things when we have those reviews with our clients.
I love that. I think, okay, so you're empowering them with data, then you're telling them how to talk about it. Then you're also helping position it in a way that provides value and ongoing value.
So basically, you're here to translate everything we say.
That's what I do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it's important to, I'm not a big believer in the normal QBR, TBR thing, because it's like, look at all the tickets I closed. I like to focus, for hospitality clients, how quick we did the front desk turnaround.
There you go.
For the ports of LA, how many people we dispatched.
But there's nothing wrong with, but hold on, I'm going to challenge you on that real quick though. You said you like QBRs. You
I don't like those. I don't like this.
You don't like how they're delivered. Because if you do it if you use the middle letter in the acronym, which is business,
yeah,
and you treat it that way only, you're not talking about tickets. You're talking about everything you mentioned. So I think it's important to say it the right way, which is you like QBRs if they're done in the manner of which they're supposed to be, which is a business review, a total business review.
And what I like to do instead of talking about these theoretical. So I'll take something like your SaaS protection, sit down with them one day and say, let me show you how easily I can recover a couple emails you asked for. And it's visual, I think, that makes the difference. A report that says, hey, Sean, I backed up 11,000 of your emails last month. You kind of go, I just care about the one I lost.
Yeah.
And so when I use, because we use your managed Acronis, and we'll sit there and show them, here's the screen and watch me recover a couple files for you. Or let me mount one of your servers and let's connect to it so you see it's working. And so I like to make sure that, I think that's important to include in your QBR or your TBR or your BR, whatever you call it.
Whatever you call it, yeah.
And they can actually see what you're doing. And that makes a lot of difference versus our acronyms. And
it also puts you in the position of being what you are essentially hired to do, which is be their CIO, their CTO, the whatever it is they need, right? That is, and I think that's a big deal because that puts you in the room making decisions with them and for them where you belong. And so that changes you from being a break fix or a mechanic or a plumber, and it turns you into one of the executive board members that has a shared, you're a stakeholder ultimately, and making, so I think that changes the whole concept and the whole conversation. Does it not?
Trusted advisor.
Yes.
I think that moves you from being a commodity salesman, which is one step away from being a Kmart blue light, to being an actual business value, where they look at it and say, this is something we can't live without.
But I think that I agree with that. And I agree with the trusted advisor, but then I think you should be one step above trusted advisor. I think you should be considered like you're one of the board members. If you do your job right, because you're not just advising them. That's the difference. Advising means I went to you for advice. This is, I'm telling you what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. Because when you work, even at ConnectWise, we can't do anything until we get it approved through the right channels. When it comes to our CISO and his team have to be involved, right? We can't just go get a product. They're telling us what we can do. And that's what people like Keith are being hired to be, is that. So I know we love using trusted advisor, and it's a big word, and I'll probably get ridiculed for it, but I think it's, I think it's more than that. I think if you do your job right, you are the CISO for the company, because they didn't hire one, they hired you.
That's right.
So I think you should see it that way. And it also gives you constant value. Like Keith said, now you're a business value. You're no longer just you're not a cost. You're actually doing the things that they could not do and couldn't stay in business if you weren't part of this.
And I'm so happy you dropped that virtual. I always thought, why would I want a virtual when I could hire a real? I think that's a bad acronym.
I don't like using the V in the beginning of it. I think you're right because it sounds weird. Because when 10 years ago, virtual assistant was somebody you hired that had a I don't know, bank of people that just might work, but also had a digital response to things, and it wasn't a real person. Like like virtual assistants. It's not quite the same. It's not the same thing at all. So no. Go ahead.
I would say the last thing that's always real important. I get asked a lot, how do you pick up some of the accounts we do? And I said, the first thing is, in order for them to respect me and my advice, the first step is to show I respect them and their business accomplishments. And so I said, take the time to learn what your customers does on a day-to-day basis and understand how you can enhance that. Otherwise, you're just throwing something on top. And it doesn't make sense to them. But when we take these, all of us have to do the same cybersecurity steps along the way. But when we start actually putting it into the workflow and showing where it's non-disruptive, and we've actually spent time thinking about how we can make the workflow run better, those things are accepted at a much higher rate. And they're only complaining about the cost per month because you're going to disrupt their business. Once you're enhancing their business, that goes away. And so,
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, again, but that's back to you providing business continuity, automating all the things. Again, that's back to you being able to make decisions on the back end without them having to do the work.
Right.
They only know who you are when a mistake occurs. That's what it should be. Otherwise, they should never even know you exist. That's how I see it, because that means you're doing your job. Now, that means you have to come back and provide value and tell them why you're valuable. That's the hardest part. But I think as long as they don't know you, unless there's an issue, that means you've done your job right. And I feel like that's the position I want to come into a sales call with. I don't know. That's all. We're over an hour now, and we can keep talking. I know we have to cut it off. So, Keith, do you have any last words? Because, and make them like regular people's last words.
Well, someday I'm going to go to your sales training and you're going to teach me how to sell. That's what we'll leave it at.
Oh, Natalie? Because not me. It's Natalie.
Oh, great. Okay. You probably teach me, Keith.
He doesn't sell.
We're all salespeople.
Natalie was on his business card at one point. He said to me, he goes, I don't do sales. I said, why is doing? And we're sitting there having a cigar at Exchange. And I said, but it's on your business card. It says it right here. It's part of your title. And he's like, I was like, then why is it on your title? And then he said it did exist. I'm like, and I even had somebody else verify. I'm like, does it say that here? Yes. So,
respect your parents.
Elders. Fine. Any other words of wisdom from you, Natalie, other than what you just said? We'll strike that from this.
I'll strike that. Take a look at the partner program. There's no initial commitment. There's nothing to lose by taking advantage of the partner program. There's nothing to lose by taking advantage of the CompTIA ISAO. I think those would be a great starting point to look at that partner program and to take advantage of that CompTIA ISAO membership. That would really be beneficial to you.
Absolutely. All right. I'm not saying party words. Thank you, everybody, for watching this, whatever this was. Seriously, thank you for both of you for spending time on this. I think it was very useful. And hanging out with me on the week of Thanksgiving when everybody's trying to go get fatter, like me. I'm getting fatter. Anyway, I know we're going to be having another one of these next month. I don't know if we established a date, but you guys will all know as soon as I know. And again, thank you both for being part of this and everybody that watched. Otherwise, everybody have a great holiday.
Yeah, have a great Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Great holiday.
Bye.
See you this week, Sean.
Bye.